Let's bring you back to our interview with Dick Grasso, in progress from the Bloomberg radio booth.
Whether they are, high frequency or good old-fashioned, stock exchange, still with some specialists in the middle.
Uniformity is the key. The question is, how do you create uniformity amongst 80 different market centers? The two principal markets, New York and NASDAQ, both trade, for example purposes, Accenture, right? Whatever the primary markets, New York Stock Exchange, Accenture's listing market, and the NASDAQ, its competitor, are doing, everyone has got to abide by. I would say to you this: we have to have a parameter set beyond which trading can't occur. In other words, limits, like in the futures markets, you don't necessarily stop trading. You simply do not allow a stock, or in the case of the commodities markets, a commodities contract, to fall beyond that limit. It continues to trade at or above the limit in down markets, at or below the limit in up markets. That simple step to coordinate cross-market circuit breakers could have prevented a lot of what we saw last Thursday. Last Thursday, remember, we fell 600 points and recovered 600 points before most people finished a cup of coffee.
It was crazy. And I had Michael Woolfolk from BNY Mellon on the air, then I had Peter Kinney from Knight on the air, and people really were, screaming in the background at their traders. No one knew what was happening. But have we taken something for granted? Is this like a Frankenstein monster that the loving technologists created to have this fast trading and make everything work better and make some big firms some big money, but it's turned into this monster now that is turning on investors in some sense?
Remember, technology and systems are created by people. And people must oversee and regulate that technology and those systems. I'll give you an analogy that I'm sure your listeners will understand. A Ferrari is capable of doing 250 miles per hour, but we don't allow it to do that in a hospital zone. So we wrap, if you will, the best technology in the world to make our markets competitive with the best regulation in the world.
So what is there anything standing in the way? It seems to make sense to have common circuit breakers across all exchanges. It hasn't happened. Do the exchanges who don't have those circuit breakers want to maintain their freedom to not do that?
Well, you have to remember that in times of free markets, technology, innovation, human nature prevail, and that creates competition. But in times when free markets become free-for-all markets, the regulators have to get everyone in a room, as they're doing today, and say, this is the way we're going to best serve the least sophisticated user of the market. If we can take good care of that person who doesn't understand market structure, who doesn't understand that the regulators and the markets are better when we protect that person, everyone flourishes.
So again, no matter what the opposition, we've got to get this done.
Well, you probably have to act a little bit like Vito Corleone.
And make them an offer they can't refuse?
There you go.